I believe I have some interesting information to share with you today with respect to my Flat Earth Fact number 16 and Addendum A videos. Before I get to the positive developments, which I think you'll enjoy, so stay tuned, let me quickly address more globe propagandists, as the no upward globe shadow proof of the flat Earth must have struck a propagandist nerve. The first one I want to share is from Simon Dan, exemplifying the dishonesty of all hired globe trolls. It's pretty funny that Simon Dan decided to use Strawman Bob's exact same ridiculous red herring fallacy. Listen to this painful clip from Simon Dan, which begins with a clip from my video. There should be a massive Earth bulge casting an upward shadow onto the clouds. In fact, if the globe were real, we'd see this upward curved shadow cast on the clouds on a frequent basis, looking something like this.
Hey genius, that's called night. Wow, possibly the most amazing thing that a flat earther has ever said. And when I say amazing, I mean that in the sense of the worst possible way imaginable.
Does Simon Dan really not get it? Unfortunately for his soul, he probably does get it. But are his viewers this shockingly simple-minded to fall for this nonsense? As I said before, we all understand the globe claim that nighttime is allegedly caused by the Earth's shadow and the angle of the sun. But if the globe were real, the Earth's supposed shadow would continue in upward angle until it actually hits all objects, and then even the clouds above us. Why is that so hard to understand? Belying the globe model, no one has ever seen or filmed this upward globe bulge shadow that should be visible at nearly every sunset and sunrise. Slapping your head and red herring fallacies aren't going to change that globe-damning fact. Next, we have propagandist Wolfie6020, who made this video to supposedly show the sun's upward shadow.
And here is the money shot. Witness the destruction of flat Earth. When the sun came up, it was clearly several degrees below horizontal, and that is evident by the sunlight streaming upwards into the aircraft. You can see I put my finger up so that you could see the shadow.
You saw where the sun was at. Now look at that intensely upward angle of Wolfie's finger shadow. I'm pretty certain that this intense upward shadow is simply caused by refraction from the plane's rounded window. This type of refraction is testable and demonstrable. We're not talking about that imaginary magical refraction that somehow makes giant bulges of earth and water disappear without a trace. This is real refraction. The plane's rounded windows are simply bending the sun's light upward. Now, is it possible on a flat Earth that the apparent sun position can be at a low enough angle that the sun can produce a slight upward shadow, even without the aid of refraction from a plane's window? Maybe. As I have said before, I believe the sun is behind a lens or firmament, and so the apparent position of the sun, a few thousand miles away at its sunrise or sunset, could theoretically produce a very slight and probably not discernible upward shadow at extreme altitudes. However, under the flat Earth model, the sun can never be angled from below the physical flat Earth plane. But this is where the globe propagandists, like Wolfie, absolutely lose, as they ignore the mutually exclusive positions of the upward shadow claim. You cannot have an upward shadow of a sun angled from below the geometric physical horizon of the Earth and not also have the physical Earth bulge cast a similar upward shadow. This is really simple to understand, Wolfie. You supposedly filmed your finger's upward shadow. Well, the giant physical bulge of the Earth should be casting an upward shadow as well, and at a similar angle, which should have appeared before your finger shadow at sunrise, and then overtake all other shadows at sunset. Show us the Earth's physical bulge shadow moving across the inside of your cockpit, and then show us the same Earth bulge shadow cast on the underside of clouds. That would be your victory dance for the globe, if it were real. Of course, you will not show this footage, as the sun is never angled below the Earth's physical flat plane. Without reasonable question, no upward Earth bulge shadow proves the Earth is flat. And that brings me to proposed tests that prove the Earth's shape either way, and these tests will also apply to those few concave Earth proponents, as your concave Earth should also demonstrate its shape and the angles of shadows. I received an email from an architect from the United Kingdom. According to him, he's a 62-year-old flat earther and has 40 years of experience in architecture. And it doesn't matter whether you believe his credentials, as it's the information and modeling that is vital here. Before I begin, I strongly recommend you pause this video and go to the architect's YouTube channel right now. It's called Shadow Reveal. Subscribe to his channel, as further testing and debate will continue primarily on his channel. He also said that he'll be putting out more videos on the topic, which I'm looking forward to. I'll have a link in the description. This is what he wrote to me in part. As a bit of a background, I'll explain how I stumbled on this. I noticed something just prior to Christmas past which stuck in my head. I live in a small seaside town. A lot of trees were removed from neighboring properties towards the end of last year, which allowed the early morning winter sun rising over the sea to shine through the bushes to the east onto my kitchen window. Since moving here, I hadn't seen this before, so it drew my attention. A strong shadow of my kitchen window was cast on the opposite wall. Nothing surprising in that, but as I looked towards the sun, it seemed to be down the hill and lower than the house. However, I noticed that the height of the head of the window shadow on the wall was lower than the actual window head. Although I noticed it, the significance didn't strike me until I watched your Mount Rainier videos. At that point, I realized that the sun had to be higher than the house, even though I thought I was looking down the hill at it. In a nutshell, I believe that whichever of the following statements is proved true will definitively show whether we live on a globe or on a flat Earth. If the Earth were a globe, then the shadow of any object formed on a vertical surface must rise to a height greater than that object as the sun sets over a lower, unobstructed physical horizon. If the Earth was flat, then the shadow of any object formed on a vertical surface can never rise to a height greater than the height of that object as the sun sets over a lower, unobstructed optical horizon. I was inspired to make a 3D Blender model to observe different sun position shadows. As an architect, I know that a picture paints 1,000 words and an animated 3D model paints 10,000. From the observations revealed by the model, I propose that simple observations are all that is needed to show our realm is flat. Also, simple observational experiments could be devised to show this to be the case almost anywhere. Arguably, the best would be made in a tall building with a shadow overlooking the sea. It could be the case that the shadow of that window on a wall in the room would regularly cast higher than the window itself if we live on a globe. If the Earth is flat, then the shadow of the window on the wall will rise slow, almost to a stop, and then fade out as the sun fades. It will never be higher than the height of the actual window head. A desert setting might also be good, as atmospheric distortion could be less. The fact is that this could be tested in the simplest ways. On the beach, overlooking the ocean, a post shadow on a wall. Indeed, does a person's shadow on a wall get taller as the sun goes down? I may make another video to illustrate the numerous observations that could be made and explore some of the model observations that aren't included in the first one. For example, the deceleration of the flat shadow as opposed to the constant speed of the globe version. This in itself would be a flat Earth proof, but perhaps a little harder to follow. I am also beginning to think that the shadow speeds may reveal some truths as to the distance of the sun. I fear that calculation, however, may require a more mathematical mind than mine. That's all I'm going to share of his email, but I do want to say that others have noticed this phenomenon as well. I remember Jeranism on the Globebusters a few years ago also mentioning the fact that he's never seen a shadow from a sunset appearing on his ceiling through a simple window. This architect's argument builds on that fact. I will be showing the architect's whole video at the end of this video in a few minutes, but look at this awesome Blender model. This is the globe model here. Notice what this is right here. That's the upward Earth bold shadow that would overtake all other shadows that I mentioned in my Flat Earth Fact number 16 videos. It's much easier to see it than to explain it. Without question, if the Earth were a globe, this Earth bold shadow would appear all the time, quickly preceding all other upward shadows at sunrise and overtaking all other upward shadows at sunset, just like you see in this model. Shadow Reveal calls it the alleged globe shadow of the physical horizon, and that's a good description. I consider that the ultimate shadow test of the shape of the Earth. If the upward globe physical horizon shadow exists, it unequivocally proves a globe-type model. If the upward shadow does not exist, then the Earth is flat. I consider this test even better than a force the line type test. It's so simple, and there's no debate here. Just red herrings, straw man arguments, and a bunch of morons slapping their heads, pretending as though they don't understand. In addition to the physical horizon shadow test under the globe model, like you see here, the shadow of the pillar must rise higher up the wall than the pillar itself. Essentially, the globe will produce a measurable upward shadow on all objects in sunlight, and the shadows of all objects should always rise higher than the objects themselves. Now, I said earlier that I think it's theoretically possible for a shadow to appear upward in a flat Earth model, but the angle would probably be so minute that it wouldn't even be measurable, but I still agree with what Shadow Reveal is saying here. So, if you were looking at two buildings 50 stories high next to each other, and the first building was casting a shadow onto the second building, essentially the first building would never cast a measurable shadow higher than the building next to it. This is where many of you could contribute by either filming these shadows or sharing your mathematical or drafting expertise. There are many places in the world that these types of tests could be conducted. Anyways, watch this video and let me know what you think. Again, head over to his channel to subscribe, and the link is in the description. A big thanks to Shadow Reveal for your participation and thoughts on this. And this is why I love Flat Earth.